Today's the day, guys. I'm getting shrimp. So I'm about to head out to my local fish shop to see what they have in terms of shrimp. But before that, I want to talk about the tank a little bit. It's been, I think, close to 2 months now since I set this up. And if you want to see a video of me setting it up, I'll put a link in the description. You can check that out. I think I'll also put like a little thing in the corner that you can click on if you want to see the full step-by-step process to set this up. I'm really happy with how it went, and I'm really proud of that video, so check it out. So overall, the Bonsai Pond has been doing super well, but I've been getting some questions from my friends and family about it, specifically about the bonsai in the water that I wanted to talk about, because you guys might have some of the same questions that they do. I also want to discuss the plants a little bit inside and also any preparation I'm going to do for the shrimp. I'll show you guys before I head out to the store. So first of all, let's talk about our current inhabitants. We have a little group of snails in here that have been doing pretty well. There's quite a few of them at this point. There's probably 15 or 20 in here now. And I've heard shrimp and snails, go hand in hand. So that's going to be perfect. I just added these floating plants to the top here this morning, and the snails have already sort of congregated onto them. And I've heard that shrimp also really like floating plants. So that's why I added those in. You'll notice that there are some differences from the first video. The plants are a little bit different here. I've added some things have died back. Unfortunately, almost all of the crypts that I planted, aside from 2 that I'll talk about in a moment, have just completely melted away. And not totally sure the reason. I kind of have terrible luck with crypts. I think there was probably just too high of a light initially in here for them. And those crypts also didn't travel super well. They were already kind of melting away a little bit when I put them in here. So in the last video I did that came out last week, I added all of this dwarf hairgrass or Eleocharis here into the front. And it seems to be doing pretty well. I mean, it's kind of hard to tell this early on, but it's doing great. I also added a little bit of Pagostemon Stella Octopus in the back, just a little stem that's poking out right here. And I think that it's doing pretty well. I'm seeing plenty of new growth on it. And I think it's doing a really good job of hiding this just little nub on the bonsai. But I think the Eleocharis works really, really well. It kind of makes this nice gradient that leads back into the microsword. And the microsword is doing fantastic. It's sending off runners all over the place. It's going to be sort of melding with this hairgrass really well. And the moss inside here has completely taken off. It's great, and that's going to be really, really good for the shrimp too. Because from my understanding, shrimp really enjoy sort of picking food out of the moss and cleaning out the algae that tends to grow in there. And there is a little bit of algae just on this moss here, which is great. That's going to be a natural food source for the shrimp. So very happy about that. This little piece of Anubias in the front here has got a bunch of new leaves on it. So again, super happy with that. And I added another bunch of Anubias just this morning. I just took it out of one of my other tanks because I kind of wanted to just plug this little hole a little bit. And I think that it works super well. It kind of looked odd to me to just have the one piece of Anubias. So I'm really happy with that. But there are still 2 crypts in here that are alive. There is a piece of crypt Wendidi green that's kind of hidden away in the rocks here that totally died back except for 1 or 2 leaves and is now creating very slowly that new underwater growth. So I'll include a shot kind of straight down so you guys can see it. And then there also is just the tiniest little crypt parva in the front. I have no idea if it's going to survive, but it is there. It hasn't gone anywhere. It hasn't really moved. I'm just going to have to wait and see what happens with that little guy. But that's how the plants are doing inside the tank. Overall, I had to do a bit of a rehaul, but we're here now, and I think it's looking fantastic. So that's them. let's talk a little bit about the bonsai. So, the bonsai. I've been getting a ton of questions about this. But first of all, how's it doing? Honestly, it's doing great. It's doing absolutely fantastic. It's grown this whole branch, it just keeps sort of curving towards the light. And it also has these tiny little branches underneath that are growing towards the light. Overall, it's growing like super fast. All of the branches, for the most part, have this new kind of green leaves that it's making. So, huge success. Um, it's also sending out a ton of roots down into the substrate. And I'm sure there's even more that I can't see, kind of weaving their way through the rocks in the bottom to get into the substrate. So it's thriving, absolutely thriving. But the questions that I'm getting about this are basically like, how does this work? People see this and they say like, oh, you're killing this bonsai to just let cool in this tank. But that's not at all what's going on here. I know it's kind of striking for people who come in who don't understand what's going on. And for people who are watching my videos who maybe I didn't explain this well enough to. But essentially what's going on here is this is hydroponics. Um, the reason that the bonsai isn't dying is because the roots get plenty of oxygen. If for a terrestrial plant, if you overwater it, the soil will basically, it just won't be able to have any oxygen moving through it. And that's when the roots die, is if they can't get enough oxygen. In an environment like this, I've got surface agitation from the pump and I've got the plants inside, and they're creating enough oxygen to oxygenate the roots. So root rot in a terrestrial plant comes from that lack of oxygen. And in this environment, even though everything is wet in here, there's still enough oxygen for the plant to be able to breathe. So in a nutshell, that's what's going on. Hopefully I explained that well and you can understand. But the growth of the bonsai and the growth of its roots, that's a pretty good indicator that what I'm doing here is totally working. And I can't recommend doing this kind of thing enough. Like, this has been just a joy to have in the house. And whenever anyone comes in, it's just a massive talking point immediately. Another question I get about this tank is, how does it work if I don't really have a filter? And my answer to that is the bonsai is the filter, the substrate is the filter. I've been adding beneficial bacteria to the tank, and it's been colonizing on everything inside here. And the beneficial bacteria just living in here does filtration as long as I'm moving the water through it, which is what the pump is for. And the bonsai itself is, to be honest, it is the main filter, because the bonsai, to grow, it's going to take out the ammonia, the nitrite, and the nitrate. And studies have shown that plants in this kind of environment, they prefer ammonia over everything else. The bonsai really is the main filter. It's going to suck out all of the ammonia, the nitrites, and the nitrates from the water. And so are the other plants. I mean, this is, for the size of this tank, it's actually really heavily planted. And there's the fast growing micro sword, fast growing stem plant. I'm not sure how fast growing the dwarf hairgrass is. I kind of have to wait and see. But the bonsai, honestly, is one of the fastest growing plants in here. And with the nature of this little ecosystem, this bonsai is just going to suck out all of the elements and maintain the cycle. And there's, of course, beneficial bacteria all in the substrate that the water is being pushed through from the pump. And all of those things together create a stable environment. And this has been going for close to 2 months. And part of the reason I wanted to let it go this long before adding anything really besides snails is I wanted to really make sure that the balance was going to work. And it's been testing out very consistently for the last 2 weeks. And so that's how I know that it's really ready to get shrimp. So hopefully that answered some of the questions that you have, the questions that I've been getting. If you have any more questions about how this setup works or the science behind it, leave them in the comments. I will do my absolute best to answer them. So that is the update on the bonsai pond here. And I'm super, super excited to get shrimp in here. I'm thinking it's going to be some red cherry shrimp. I'm going to see what they have at the store when I go there here in just a few minutes. But there's just one thing that I want to do to this tank before I get the shrimp. And it's going to have to do with the filter over here. Well, not the filter, just the pump. Currently, I'm a little bit concerned that some of the shrimp might get sucked into it, especially if I have like baby shrimp. Because it's got these little slits on the top that are pulling the water through. And it's also sucking up some like duckweed and little pieces of debris, which I think is going to shorten the life of the pump. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this thing out of here. And I have like a big thing of filter floss somewhere around here. And I'm just going to wrap some filter floss around it and just make sure that nothing gets sucked up into it. No shrimps, no little snails, no duckweed. So that's my plan. I'm going to do that. Then it's shrimp time. Filter floss. All right, so I got the pump out, and you can kind of see this is where I'm concerned about stuff getting sucked in, and the tube is actually kind of dirty. So I'm going to clean that while I'm at this here, but I'm just going to try to wrap some filter floss just like all around this thing and mostly just cover up this area. So I'll see how it goes. All right, got the little tube cleaned out. The only thing about wrapping this with filter floss is that I control the flow with this little knob on top. So I think I'm going to try to make a little slit there so I can control this. Either that, or I'm just going to set it and forget it, which will probably be fine. I'm keeping it fairly low just because of the volume of the tank is so low. But look at this filter floss. I thought I was getting like a tiny bag of this stuff when I bought it a few months ago. Turns out no, they just sent me all of the filter floss that they had. I'm just going to cut out a little strip, more than I need. I'm thinking I can probably just like rubber band this around. So I couldn't find any rubber bands for some reason, and I think I'm just a little impatient looking around the house, but electrical tape. Electrical tape should do the work here. I think I'm just going to hold it like this, tape it up, see how this works. I can always search a little bit harder for a rubber band if I need one. So I think that has actually worked pretty well. Got the electrical tape on there, a little bit on the top, a little bit on the bottom. I made this little slit in the top so I can access the intensity of the pump. So yeah, I think that's a success. Now I just have to get it back in the tank and see how it looks. Tried to give it as much of a haircut as I could, but yeah, let's give it a test. All right, I just gotta fit this part through the bonsai's legs. There we go. Get it attached to the back of the glass. This seems like a success. Yeah, it's like a little bit above the water line, but I'm gonna bring the water line a little bit back up when I add the shrimp here. So let's plug it in. So there it is. And it's working. It's unfortunately a little bit unsightly. So I think I'm gonna add like a rock or something in front of it. And it's making, I don't know if you can hear, it's making like a little bit of a weird noise. Hopefully that'll fade with time as it kind of calibrates a little bit and the filter floss gets nice and soaked. Kind of looks like a rice dumpling a little bit with like the tape coming up the side. So I'm going to find a rock here to just put in front of it. Let's see how this works. All right, so that's what I did. couple of rocks right in front. That does obscure it pretty well, but it looks a little bit strange. I don't know. What do you guys think? I think maybe if I put a plant like right here, like a little bit of more Anubias, that could be kind of cool. I think I like this more than being able to see the filter, but it's a little like vertical. Do you know what I mean? So I'm going to leave that for now, but I might change that in the future. We'll see. So it's still making like a little bit of a weird sound. That might frustrate me slightly. Not sure what I'll be able to do about that. I might have to workshop this idea a little bit, but I think for now it's good enough to get the shrimp in here, which that's the goal. But first I made a little bit of a mess in here, so I'm going to clean this stuff up and then, yeah, get ready to go to the fish store and buy some shrimp and maybe also a little plant to go right there. So I'm going to do that, and yeah, I'll see you guys back here shortly when I have some shrimp to go in the tank. All right, guys, I'm back from the fish shop. I've got the shrimp. I am so excited. Okay, so I think I'm going to acclimate them in this bowl. This is just a little piece of Anubias that I got that's going to go right in that spot. I also got a little bit of shrimp food. And then here is our little bag of red cherry shrimp. I am beyond excited for these guys. So here they are. I'm just going to open up this bag, and I'm just going to pour them into this bowl. And I'm going to do the acclimation process in here. They told me at the shop that I shouldn't need to do any drip acclimation because these shrimp have been sitting in basically the same water that I have, and they were also locally bred. So they have been sitting, well, living in the same water that I've been using for my tank. So I chose them kind of for that reason. They're locally bred, which means that they are already accustomed to the conditions that I'm going to put them in. So I'm going to pour them into our bowl here and then just start acclimating slowly. All right, here we go. Get all of them out. And there they are. Oh my gosh. I am so excited. I've got 10 red cherry shrimp. Let's count them up. Let's see. 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. And that looks like there's a little bonus baby in there as well. It looks like a little bit yellow. I'm going to have to, once I get them into the tank, I can see what color it is a little bit better. But let's start acclimating. So as far as temperature acclimation goes, the Bonsai Pond doesn't have a heater in it. So basically these shrimp are going to get acclimated to the same temperature just by sitting in this room for long enough because the tank's at room temperature. But I am going to use this trusty little cup measure to add a little bit of water in here every so often. I think I'm also going to take a little bit of water out as well, kind of as I do this slowly over time, to just make sure I don't overflow the tank when I end up, pouring them in. So I'm going to go in here, just take like the tiniest amount of water, just pour in just a couple drops. And I'm going to do this for probably the next hour and a half, something like that. And just let these guys really just slowly get acclimated because I haven't had shrimp before. I'm a noob. I want to make sure that I do this right. I'll get these guys acclimated and then I'll come back and put them in the tank with you guys. So while I'm waiting, I'm going to put this little piece of Anubias in that spot that needs to be covered. So a nice little bit of Anubias. It's got these really tiny leaves. This is Anubias Nana Petite. Right, there we go. Most of the rock wool's taken off. I'm going to put it right in that little spot. Yeah, I think that actually pulls it together pretty well. I think overall I like what's happened over here. So A plus. Time to keep acclimating. All right, guys. So it's been about an hour. I've got the shrimp right here. I've been slowly acclimating them. I'm going to take a little bit of water out of their bowl, and then I'm going to add them into the tank. It is time. All righty, here we go. Adding the shrimp. There you go, guys. Ooh, ooh, one more. There we go. All right, so the shrimp are in here. And oh, there's one. I can see a couple of them. Looks like they're immediately hiding, which is about what I expected, to be honest. But I think my plan is I'm going to let them settle in for a while, probably overnight. I'll put a little bit of food in here for them, and I'm going to just observe them over the next couple hours. And then I'm going to check back in with you guys tomorrow morning. And we can see how they're doing. All right, guys. So it is the next day. And last night I spent probably an hour or so with my fiance, just our noses like an inch away from the glass, just watching the shrimp explore. And it has been so much fun. And I've kind of been fiddling around with the tank a little bit all morning, just trying to find the shrimp, watching them do their thing. It's pretty interesting because I'm only ever really able to see like two or three, maybe four at a time right now. And I added a few shrimp pellets last night and a couple more this morning, and they don't seem that interested in them yet, at least. So there must be enough of a food source just in the tank that they're attracted to. And I think most likely that food source is underneath the bonsai because there's a whole bunch of sort of caves in here and places where detritus can sort of get trapped, which that could be a problem in the long term. But for now, I think it's just created a space for the shrimp to forage. And I think that's the reason why I can't see them that much right now is they're probably all in this rock structure, eating, hopefully breeding, who knows. But that's really the only explanation I have for why I can't see them that much. And it doesn't hugely bother me. I think it really kind of pulls me into the tank more, to be honest with you. It's really interesting because adding these tiny little guys that are hiding all over this place has made this tank feel so much bigger because I really have to kind of get up close to it and explore the tank with my eyes to see how they're interacting. And it has really made this structure just feel so much bigger. It almost feels like there's just a labyrinth in here that the shrimp are exploring that I'm not necessarily a part of, but I'm drawn into by trying to find them and see, what they're doing, that kind of thing. So it's been awesome. Honestly, it's been really fun last night and this morning, just trying to find them, watching them do their thing. And yeah, my fiance absolutely loves them. She was actually filming when I added the shrimp last night. So shout out to Bridget for getting a great shot of the shrimp going into the tank. But overall, I'm really excited. I'm really happy. I'm just stoked to see how this is going to evolve. I mean, am I going to have a ton of shrimp babies? Are they going to come foraging out more once they've sort of depleted more of the food wherever they're hiding? Or are they just getting used to their environment right now? It's hard to tell. And I tested the water this morning, and ammonia, nitrite, everything looks totally fine. Got the same reading as I got yesterday morning. So that's good. I added one more piece of frog bit and I actually took out a couple snails because I want to make sure that the snails aren't competing too heavily with the shrimp at the beginning. I want the shrimp to, get used to the food that I'm adding, and I don't want the snails to just consume it before the shrimp have a chance to find it. So yeah, that's how we're doing this morning. So overall, I'm really, really happy. It's going to be so much fun to just see how this project evolves. And it's really inspired me to keep creating sort of smaller scapes like this, jars, that sort of thing in the future that to put shrimp in. Honestly, it's really cool that you can put shrimp in such a small space. Because I expected it, with adding 10 shrimp to this, for it to feel maybe a little crowded, but it absolutely does not. So they've been a huge inspiration. I totally get why a lot of people are so into shrimp. And yeah, I feel like I'm kind of starting like opening a new page in the book of aquariums and aquascaping and everything. It's been really, really fun to add these guys. So I hope you guys really enjoyed watching me add the shrimp here. If you're like a shrimp expert or anything and you see any problems with this scape for them, let me know. I'd love to hear what more experience people had to say. Leave that down in the comments. And while you're at it, give me a like and subscribe. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you really enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.